It looks like whenever you were writing in your LabPort original that you were getting to the point where you were trying to show and give some background information right here. Um, this shows how human activity can affect the watershed. And so I'm going to highlight that part right there for just a minute. And then you begin to talk about non-point and point source right here. And you begin to talk about the watershed here. And then you talk about biotic factors. And I think there's another thing right here, food chain right here. Oops, I didn't mean to make a link. So those elements right there, this is kind of some background that you would need to really look at and describe in your introduction. And so watershed was one of the things that you talked about, and it's in the title right here of your report, right? And so what we might want to say right here, the human, and you could do with the human activities that you talked about before, human, and I think I'm just going to get that from your paper. I think that was right here. Okay, I'm going to copy that sentence right here. And then I'm going to start with these human, and you said, hang on just a second, you said this shows. So I'm not really sure what this is. So this is a word that we really try to avoid without using a noun after it, this whatever. And so what we would need to do right here is just change it, just make a statement. Human activities or activity can affect the watershed. The pollution from factories, that's your human activity, can turn into, let's see, the pollution from factories enters the air and then returns to the earth with rain. Since the chemicals are inside the water droplets, they now enter ground. And so what we're talking about with the watershed right here is going to be important here. As the water drains and collects in the watershed areas, these chemicals are now in areas where plants and animals are impacted. You also talked about non-point and point source solution, and I honestly don't know what that is, and I don't know what biotic factors are, but you would have to figure out how you were going to describe what was happening with the watershed area. You've got to connect the point and non-point concepts to the watershed, and you've got to connect the biotic and non-biotic or abiotic to the watershed areas that are right there. Um, just thinking, I think that I was remembering you wrote about antibiotic in one of the things right here. I'm going to find that Control F. Yeah. What I think happened with this one right here is this is not talking about um, like prescriptions that we use to kill infections. You probably had a spelling mistake right here. And if, as I remember your first draft, I do believe that that was there. You're going to have to be really careful not to accept um, spelling changes that change the meaning of what the scientific concept is. The word actually is abiotic, and that is the scientific term um, that means, I think it means without life. So you don't really, you've got to really think about what terms you're wanting to correct whenever you're going into work like that. So what we would need to do now is your next steps would be to address those concepts. And now I'm going to take a phone call.